Among history's most remarkable figures, two names stand whose strength and legacy still echo across centuries: Catherine I of Russia and Grigory Orlov of Russia, whose alliance and influence steered the empire through courts and battlefields. Together, they left a mark on Russian history, blending power, politics, and enduring legacy. Let us begin with the first, Catherine I of Russia. Catherine I of Russia was born on the 15th of April in the year 1684 in Jakobstad, now known as Jekabpils, Latvia, within the former Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. What happened to this young girl of uncertain origins, whose early years were marked by loss and hardship? How did she rise from an illiterate servant to become the first woman to rule the vast Russian Empire? What inner resilience and political skill allowed her to hold power in a court dominated by intrigue? Please watch my full video until the end, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please make sure to share it with your friends. Thank you. Now, let us dive into the full story. Born Marta Helena Skavronskaya, Catherine's life began far from royal privilege. Her father, Samuel Skowronski, was a Roman Catholic farmer from the eastern regions of the Commonwealth, while her mother's identity is debated in historical accounts. Tragedy struck early when a plague epidemic claimed both her parents, leaving Marta and her siblings orphaned. She was only around 5 years old when she was sent to Marienburg in Swedish Livonia, where she entered the household of Lutheran pastor Johann Ernst Gluck. There, Marta worked as a servant, performing menial tasks in exchange for food and shelter. She received no formal education, remaining unable to read or write throughout her life. Yet even in these humble surroundings, her beauty and presence began to draw notice, setting the stage for a journey that would soon take her from obscurity into the very heart of Russian history. Marta Helena Skavronskaya's years in Marienburg shaped the foundation of her character, though they offered little comfort or privilege. Arriving as a young orphan, she entered the household of Johann Ernst Gluck, a respected Lutheran pastor and translator of the Bible into Latvian. For Marta, this was not an adoption into a nurturing family, but rather a place in the servant ranks of the household. Her duties were menial, washing clothes, cleaning floors, and working in the kitchen. She rose early each morning to prepare water, tend to chores, and serve the needs of the Gluck family. Despite living in the home of an educated man, she was never taught to read or write, a fact that would remain with her for life. This lack of education, however, did not diminish her sharp instincts or her ability to understand people and situations quickly. By her teenage years, Marta had grown into a striking young woman, her beauty and warm demeanor setting her apart even within her modest surroundings. However, life in Marienburg was not without tension. Some accounts suggest that Gluck's wife grew wary of the attention Marta might attract from men, particularly their son, and sought to arrange her future away from the household. Marienburg itself was a small but strategically important town in Swedish Livonia, and it would soon find itself caught in the tides of the Great Northern War. The events that unfolded during this conflict would forever alter Marta's path, pulling her from the quiet routines of service into the unpredictable world of military campaigns and political intrigue. In the early 1700s, the quiet rhythms of Marta Helena Skavronskaya's life in Marienburg were shattered by the outbreak of the Great Northern War between Sweden and Russia. As Swedish forces fortified their positions, Marta's life took an unexpected turn. At around 17 years old, she was married to a Swedish dragoon named Johan Kruse, also recorded in some accounts as Johann Rab. Their union was brief, lasting only about 8 days before war swept them apart. When Russian troops under Field Marshal Boris Sheremetev captured Marienburg in 1702, the Swedish garrison withdrew, leaving the town's civilians at the mercy of the victors. Pastor Gluck offered his services as a translator to the Russians and was taken to Moscow, but Marta's fate took a different route. Some accounts claim she worked briefly in the laundry of the Russian regiment, while other, less certain stories suggest she may have been presented to Brigadier General Rudolf Felix Bauer and later entered the service of Sheremetev himself. Whether through chance or arrangement, she soon left Marienburg behind, becoming part of the entourage that traveled toward the Russian court. This sudden shift, from a small Baltic town to the heart of Russian military circles, marked a decisive turning point. Marta's survival now depended on her adaptability, her ability to navigate unfamiliar environments, and the impression she could make on powerful men. These early experiences in the chaos of war would prepare her for the political storms she would one day face as Catherine I of Russia. After leaving Marienburg behind, Marta Helena Skavronskaya entered a new and more complex world, the households of Russia's rising nobility. Her path first led her into the service of Alexander Menshikov, a close friend and trusted advisor to Tsar Peter the Great. Menshikov was one of the most influential men in Russia at the time, having risen from humble beginnings to become a powerful statesman and military leader. Some sources suggest that Marta was purchased by Menshikov, while others say she entered his household through less formal arrangements. Regardless of the exact circumstances, she quickly adapted to the expectations of noble service. Whether performing domestic duties or assisting in the more refined aspects of household management, Marta's natural charm and keen instincts helped her stand out. The relationship between Marta and Menshikov has long been a subject of speculation. While rumors hinted at a romantic connection, it is equally possible that Menshikov recognized her potential as a political asset. He was known for understanding Tsar Peter's preferences and may have seen in Marta someone who could gain the Tsar's favor while remaining loyal to him. In 1703, during a visit by Tsar Peter to Menshikov's residence, Marta was introduced to the ruler of Russia. This meeting would change the course of her life entirely. Within a year, she became part of Peter's personal household, no longer simply a servant in a noble home, but a close companion to the Tsar himself. It was in this role that Marta's transformation from an illiterate servant girl into a figure of influence at the Russian court truly began. The introduction between Marta Helena Skavronskaya and Tsar Peter the Great in 1703 marked the true turning point in her life. Accounts differ on the details of their first meeting, but most agree it took place during one of Peter's visits to Alexander Menshikov's home. The Tsar, known for his commanding presence and restless energy, was immediately taken by Marta's beauty, warmth, and unpretentious nature. At the time, Peter was a ruler deeply engaged in both reforming his empire and leading it through war. He valued practical skill, loyalty, and resilience over noble birth, qualities Marta seemed to possess in abundance. Unlike many at court, she did not flatter excessively or try to impress with wit. Instead, she offered a steady, calming presence. This was no small gift to a man known for his intense moods and temper. By 1704, Marta had entered Peter's household as his companion, a role that placed her in close proximity to the ruler in both private and public life. That same year, she converted from Lutheranism to Russian Orthodoxy, taking the name Catherine Alexeyevna. This change not only reflected her integration into Russian culture, but also strengthened her position within the court. In these early years, Catherine accompanied Peter on military campaigns and state journeys, adapting to a life far removed from her humble origins. Her quick understanding of people and situations allowed her to navigate the intricate dynamics of court life, preparing her for the far greater challenges that lay ahead. Catherine's conversion to Russian Orthodoxy in 1703 was a significant moment in her transformation from Marta Helena Skavronskaya into Catherine Alexeyevna. The ceremony marked more than a change of faith. It symbolized her acceptance into the cultural and spiritual heart of Russia. In the Orthodox tradition, she took a new name, one closely aligned with Russian royal identity, signaling her deepening connection to Tsar Peter the Great and his vision for the empire. As Peter's companion, Catherine occupied a role unlike that of any other woman at court. She was not born into nobility, yet she shared the Tsar's private life, traveled alongside him on military campaigns, and participated in the informal aspects of governance. Her practicality and calm temperament were well suited to Peter's unpredictable moods. On more than one occasion, she is said to have diffused his rages and helped him refocus on important matters of state. Catherine's life during this period was far from one of idle luxury. The court under Peter was mobile and often followed the Tsar to military fronts or newly developing cities like St. Petersburg. Catherine endured the same difficult conditions as the soldiers and officers, living in tents, enduring long journeys, and facing the uncertainties of war. Her presence in Peter's inner circle was noticed by those around him, and while some viewed her with suspicion because of her humble origins, others admired her loyalty and adaptability. In these years, Catherine learned to balance personal devotion with the subtle political awareness necessary to survive and eventually thrive in the volatile environment of the Russian imperial court. Life alongside Tsar Peter the Great meant that Catherine Alexeyevna was often directly exposed to the dangers of war. One of the most defining moments of her early partnership with Peter occurred during the Pruth campaign of 1711, a military expedition against the Ottoman Empire. The campaign began with high hopes, but quickly turned into a desperate situation when Russian forces found themselves surrounded by a much larger Ottoman army near the Pruth River. As supplies dwindled and the prospect of defeat loomed, tensions within the camp ran high. It was during this crisis that Catherine is said to have shown both courage and ingenuity. According to later accounts, including those by the philosopher Voltaire, Catherine suggested gathering her own jewels along with those of other women in the camp to offer as a bribe to the Ottoman Grand Vizier, Baltasar Mehmet Pasha. Whether the bribe was the deciding factor, or whether diplomatic considerations played a larger role, the Ottomans agreed to terms that allowed the Russian army to withdraw. The retreat saved both Peter's life and the Russian position in the war. Peter himself credited Catherine with playing a decisive part in avoiding disaster. This episode not only strengthened Peter's trust in her, but also elevated her standing among his advisors and soldiers. She had proven that she could act decisively under pressure, contributing not just as a companion, but as someone capable of influencing events at the highest stakes. It was a quality that would serve her well in the years to come. Following the events of the Pruth campaign, Catherine Alexeyevna's bond with Tsar Peter the Great grew even stronger. Although they had been living as partners for years and had already started a family, their union was not yet formalized in the eyes of the Russian Orthodox Church. That changed on the 9th of February in 1712, when Peter and Catherine were officially married at St. Isaac's Cathedral in St. Petersburg. The marriage marked Catherine's transformation from the Tsar's companion to his lawful wife and Tsarina of Russia. It also solidified her position within the imperial family, giving her a recognized role in court affairs and in the future of the Romanov dynasty. By this time, Catherine had already given birth to several children, though only 2 daughters. Anna, born in 1708, and Elizabeth, born in 1709, survived into adulthood. Peter commemorated the occasion by creating the Order of St. Catherine, a chivalric order named in her honor. It symbolized not only her elevated status, but also Peter's deep appreciation for her loyalty and service during times of both peace and war. As Tsarina, Catherine continued to accompany Peter on his travels and military campaigns, enduring the same harsh conditions he faced. Their relationship was one of mutual reliance, with Catherine often acting as a steadying influence during the Tsar's volatile moods. Her rise from humble beginnings to the highest position in the empire was now complete in name, but her journey as a political figure in her own right was only just beginning. With her marriage to Peter the Great formalized, Catherine Alexeyevna took her place as Tsarina in the newly established imperial court of St. Petersburg. Founded in 1703, the city was still under construction, and life there demanded resilience. Peter preferred a more practical lifestyle than the grand traditions of older European courts, and Catherine adapted easily to his vision. In the early years, they lived together in a modest 3-room log cabin, a striking contrast to the lavish palaces of other monarchs. This simplicity suited Catherine, who was known for her cheerful nature and ability to maintain a warm household even in modest surroundings. Yet, despite this outward modesty, St. Petersburg was also a stage for political maneuvering, and Catherine quickly learned how to navigate it. She became a trusted partner in Peter's reforms, supporting his efforts to modernize Russia along Western European lines. While she did not involve herself directly in legislative matters, she influenced appointments, mediated disputes, and served as a calming presence in the often turbulent environment of court politics. Catherine's role was also deeply personal. She was one of the few people able to temper Peter's infamous temper. Her composure and understanding often eased tensions during moments of crisis. Foreign visitors to the court noted her approachable manner, which contrasted with the formal distance maintained by many royal consorts. Though the St. Petersburg court lacked the centuries-old traditions of other European capitals, it was rapidly becoming the center of Russian political life. Here, Catherine's position was secure, and her influence steadily grew, setting the stage for the pivotal years that would follow. Catherine Alexeyevna's formal elevation within the Russian Empire came in 1724, when Peter the Great arranged for her to be crowned as Empress consort. The ceremony took place in St. Petersburg and marked the first time a Russian ruler crowned his wife as his equal in such an official and public manner. It was a clear signal of Peter's trust in her, and his intention to secure her status in the eyes of both the court and the people. The coronation was a grand affair, filled with elaborate processions, ceremonial robes, and religious blessings conducted by high-ranking clergy of the Russian Orthodox Church. Foreign envoys and members of the nobility gathered to witness the unprecedented event, aware that this step was not only personal but political. By crowning Catherine, Peter effectively acknowledged her as a partner in rulership, a move that would influence the line of succession. This period also reflected Catherine's growing political awareness. As Empress consort, she gained greater influence over court appointments and policy discussions, though she exercised it with discretion. She continued to fulfill her role as a supportive spouse, often acting as an intermediary between the Tsar and those seeking his favor. However, her newfound prominence also made her a target for intrigue. Rumors and rivalries within the court intensified, foreshadowing the challenges she would face in the years ahead. Yet, The coronation had cemented her legitimacy, making it clear that Catherine was no longer simply the Tsar's companion. She was now a crowned and recognized ruler beside him. As Empress consort, Catherine Alexeyevna's role extended far beyond ceremonial duties. Her position gave her the ability to shape the political landscape of Peter the Great's court, often through carefully maintained alliances and discreet influence. She had a keen sense for reading people and situations, a skill that allowed her to support those loyal to her and protect her own standing. One of her strongest and most enduring alliances was with Alexander Menshikov, the man who had first introduced her to Peter. Menshikov remained a central figure in Russian politics, and his partnership with Catherine ensured mutual protection and influence. Together, they formed a network of allies who could advance their interests in the face of powerful aristocratic factions. Catherine also developed relationships with members of the New Men, individuals elevated by Peter based on merit rather than noble birth. By supporting their advancement, she built a base of loyalty that would prove valuable during times of political uncertainty. She often acted as an intermediary between petitioners and Peter, softening his approach and helping to resolve disputes before they escalated. Her influence was not without its critics. Some nobles resented her background and saw her growing power as an affront to traditional aristocracy. However, Catherine's charm, loyalty to Peter, and ability to maintain key alliances kept her position secure. This period showcased her talent for balancing personal relationships with political necessity, a skill that would become even more crucial when she faced challenges to her influence and loyalty in the final years of Peter's reign. In the final years of Peter the Great's life, Catherine Alexeyevna's position at court faced its most serious test, the scandal involving Willem Mons. Mons, the brother of Peter's former mistress Anna, and the sibling of one of Catherine's own ladies-in-waiting, served as Catherine's personal secretary. Known for his charm and connections, Mons became a powerful figure in his own right, controlling access to Catherine and, by extension, to the Tsar. Over time, rumors began to circulate that Mons and his sister Matryona were accepting bribes in exchange for securing favors from Catherine. While no direct evidence implicated Catherine in wrongdoing, her fondness for the Mons family led her to overlook the allegations. When Peter discovered the situation in 1724, he reacted swiftly and harshly. Willem Mons was arrested, tried, and publicly executed, while Matryona was exiled. The scandal created a deep rift between Peter and Catherine. For several months, they spoke little, and speculation about Catherine's personal involvement in the affair spread quickly through the court. Some even whispered of an improper relationship between her and Mons, though such claims remain unproven. Despite the tension, Catherine retained her title and continued to fulfill her public duties. Eventually, she and Peter reconciled, but the incident left a lasting mark on their relationship. It also served as a reminder of the dangers of court politics, where alliances could turn into liabilities and personal connections could spark political crises. The Mons affair would be the last major challenge Catherine faced before Peter's death. When Peter the Great died on the 28th of January in 1725, Russia was left without a named successor. The sudden vacancy on the throne created an immediate power struggle between entrenched aristocrats and the new men, individuals of common birth, whom Peter had elevated based on merit. Catherine Alexeyevna, as the widowed Empress consort, became the focal point of this conflict. Her strongest ally, Alexander Menshikov, acted swiftly. Using his influence with the elite guards regiments, many of whom were personally loyal to Catherine, he staged a decisive intervention. At a council convened to choose the next ruler, the guards proclaimed Catherine as Empress of Russia. This was a remarkable outcome, as it marked the first time a woman would rule the Russian Empire in her own right. The move was justified by producing testimony from Peter's secretary and the Bishop of Pskov, both of whom claimed that Peter had intended for Catherine to succeed him. Whether this was genuine or politically manufactured remains uncertain, but the support of the military and key political figures ensured her swift ascension. Once on the throne, Catherine placed real power in the hands of the newly formed Supreme Privy Council, dominated by Menshikov and other trusted allies. While she held the title of Empress Regnant, her reign began under the clear guidance of those who had secured her position. Her rise to power was a testament to her political alliances, personal loyalty from the guards, and the trust she had cultivated during her years beside Peter, a combination that allowed her to make history as Russia's first female ruler. As Empress Regnant, Catherine I of Russia ruled from 1725 to 1727, presiding over a period of relative peace and cautious governance. Though the real power often rested with the Supreme Privy Council, Catherine still shaped the direction of her reign through select policies and personal priorities. One of her most significant decisions was to reduce military expenditures. At the time of her accession, the Russian army was the largest in Europe, with over 130,000 regular troops and an additional 100,000 Cossacks. Maintaining such a force consumed roughly 65% of the state's revenue. Catherine recognized the financial strain this placed on the nation and succeeded in cutting costs, offering relief to the peasantry through lower taxation. In foreign affairs, she joined the Austro-Spanish League to support her son-in-law, the Duke of Holstein, in disputes with Great Britain, though she generally avoided major conflicts. Domestically, Catherine focused on consolidating the gains made under Peter the Great, supporting the modernization of Russia without initiating sweeping new reforms. She also left a cultural mark, lending her name to significant sites such as Katharinehof in St. Petersburg and the Catherine Palace at Tsarskoye Selo. Her patronage extended to public works, including the construction of the city's first bridges. Catherine's reign, though brief, demonstrated her ability to maintain stability in a newly reformed empire. She proved that a woman could hold the throne of Russia, setting a precedent for the century of female rulers that followed, including her own daughter, Empress Elizabeth, and her granddaughter-in-law, Catherine the Great. By the spring of 1727, Catherine I's health had begun to fail. Years of enduring harsh military campaigns, combined with the pressures of court life, had taken their toll. She suffered from what was diagnosed at the time as an abscess of the lungs, now believed to have been tuberculosis. Despite her declining condition, she continued to fulfill her ceremonial duties, maintaining her composure in public even as her strength waned. Aware that her time was limited, Catherine turned her attention to securing the succession. She chose her late husband's grandson, the young Peter II, as her heir. This decision maintained continuity within the Romanov line and was supported by her closest ally, Alexander Menshikov, who hoped to guide the boy as regent. Catherine spent her final weeks at Tsarskoye Selo, the estate she had helped develop during her reign. Surrounded by trusted attendants and members of her family, she remained engaged in state matters as much as her health allowed. On the 17th of May in 1727, at the age of 43, Catherine died in St. Petersburg. Her passing marked the end of a remarkable journey from orphaned servant to Empress of Russia. She was laid to rest in the Peter and Paul Cathedral, beside Peter the Great. Catherine's reign had been brief, but her legacy was enduring. She had opened the path for women to rule Russia, proved her political resilience, and left behind a model of stability during a critical transitional period in the empire's history. Her life story remains one of the most extraordinary transformations in European history. Let us now turn to another remarkable figure of royal descent. Grigory Orlov of Russia was born on the 17th of October in the year 1734 in Bezhetsky Uyezd, Tver Governorate within the Russian Empire. How did this young nobleman rise from a promising military officer to become the most powerful favorite of Catherine the Great? What role did he play in shaping the destiny of an empire through both love and revolution? And how did ambition, loyalty, and personal scandal intertwine to determine his fate? Grigory Orlov was the son of Grigory Ivanovich Orlov, a respected governor of Great Novgorod, and Lukaria Ivanovna Zinovieva. Born into privilege, he was raised with the advantages of noble status, but also with the expectation of military service to the crown. His upbringing instilled discipline, physical skill, and a familiarity with the values of service and leadership that would define his early years. From a young age, Orlov was drawn to the military path. He entered the prestigious Corps of Cadets in St. Petersburg, an institution that trained the sons of noble families for service in the Imperial Army. Here, he developed a reputation for both bravery and charm, qualities that would later prove decisive in winning allies and influencing events at court. This formative period provided Orlov with the skills and connections that would soon propel him onto the larger stage of Russian politics and warfare. The next steps of his journey would take him into battle during the 7 Years' War, where he would earn distinction and set the stage for an encounter that would change his life forever. From his earliest days in the Corps of Cadets at St. Petersburg, Grigory Orlov demonstrated a mix of physical courage and an instinct for leadership. The Corps was a rigorous training ground, producing officers for the Imperial Army who could serve with both discipline and distinction. Orlov's natural confidence and quick wit made him popular among his peers, while his dedication to training impressed his instructors. Upon completing his education, Orlov entered active service in the Imperial Army. His early assignments involved the demanding work of artillery, a branch of the military that required both technical skill and precise coordination. He proved himself capable in both the practical and strategic aspects of the role, earning the respect of his superiors. In these formative years, Orlov also began cultivating relationships with influential figures in military and court circles. These connections, while initially casual, would later prove invaluable as he navigated the shifting currents of Russian politics. His combination of noble birth, proven military skill, and an engaging personality placed him in a unique position for advancement. By the late 1750s, Orlov was already on a path toward prominence. He had gained valuable experience and had begun to distinguish himself as a competent officer. His service record and growing reputation were about to be tested on a much larger stage, the 7 Years' War, a conflict that would not only hone his skills under fire, but also set in motion the chain of events leading to his future role at the very heart of the Russian Empire. When the 7 Years' War erupted in 1756, Grigory Orlov's military career entered its first true test. The global conflict drew in nearly every major European power, and Russia became a key player against Prussia and its allies. Orlov served with distinction in the Imperial Army's campaigns, gaining first-hand experience in the complexities of large-scale warfare. His service brought him to the Battle of Zorndorf in 1758, one of the bloodiest confrontations between Russian and Prussian forces. The fighting was fierce, marked by brutal hand-to-hand combat and high casualties on both sides. Orlov distinguished himself through both courage and determination, holding his position under intense pressure. During the battle, he sustained a wound, a testament to the ferocity of the engagement and his willingness to face danger directly. The injury did not diminish his standing. Instead, it enhanced his reputation as a brave and committed officer. His conduct at Zorndorf earned him recognition among fellow officers and helped solidify his image as a man who could be relied upon in moments of crisis. It was during this period, too, that Orlov's presence in St. Petersburg society began to grow. When stationed in or near the capital, he moved easily in elite circles, making connections that bridged the military and the court. These relationships would soon set the stage for a pivotal meeting, one that would change the trajectory of his life and alter the course of Russian history. Following his service in the 7 Years' War, Grigory Orlov found himself spending more time in and around St. Petersburg. The imperial capital was a place where military service and social ambition could intertwine, and Orlov possessed the charm, confidence, and presence to navigate its layered society with ease. His good looks, quick humor, and reputation as a decorated officer made him a welcome figure at gatherings hosted by the city's influential families. At the same time, his military connections provided him with invitations to exclusive events attended by members of the nobility, senior officers, and courtiers. These occasions were more than simple entertainment. They were opportunities to form alliances, gather information, and observe the delicate balance of power at court. Orlov understood that success in St. Petersburg required both skill in conversation and an ability to read the unspoken rules that govern the capital's elite. As he became a familiar face in salons and drawing rooms, Orlov began to build relationships that extended beyond the military sphere. He mingled with diplomats, politicians, and members of the imperial household, all while maintaining the air of a man equally at home on the battlefield and in a ballroom. It was within this dynamic social environment that Orlov's path would intersect with a woman destined to become one of the most powerful rulers in Russian history. Their meeting would spark not only a personal connection, but also a partnership that would reshape the future of the empire and propel Orlov into a position of influence beyond anything his early career might have predicted. In the late 1750s, Grigory Orlov's position within the St. Petersburg military and social circles brought him into the path of Grand Duchess Catherine Alexeyevna, the wife of the heir to the Russian throne, Grand Duke Peter. Their first meeting is thought to have taken place at court gatherings where military officers and members of the nobility mingled. Orlov's tall stature, confident demeanor, and lively wit made him a figure who drew attention quickly, and Catherine noticed him almost immediately. Catherine, already known for her sharp intelligence and political awareness, was surrounded by a court filled with rivalry and hidden agendas. She saw in Orlov not only a man of striking presence, but also one who carried a fearless and decisive nature. Their early conversations revealed a shared understanding of the challenges and dangers within the imperial household. Over time, their acquaintance developed into trust, and that trust evolved into a personal bond. Orlov provided Catherine with a sense of loyalty and protection she could not easily find among the courtiers, many of whom shifted their alliances with the changing winds of influence. For his part, Orlov admired Catherine's resolve and her vision for Russia's future, traits that resonated deeply with his own ambitions. This meeting marked the start of a partnership that would soon have consequences reaching far beyond personal affection. It was the quiet beginning of an alliance that, in the years to come, would play a decisive role in altering the fate of the Russian Empire. Following their first meeting, the connection between Grigory Orlov and Grand Duchess Catherine Alexeyevna deepened quickly. Orlov's frequent presence at her side did not go unnoticed within the court. Whispers circulated about the nature of their relationship, but neither seemed concerned with silencing the gossip. Instead, their bond strengthened, built on mutual trust, and shared goals in a court environment where loyalty was a rare commodity. Catherine valued Orlov's straightforward manner and his readiness to act decisively when needed. His military background and reputation for courage gave her confidence that he could be relied upon during moments of uncertainty. Orlov, in turn, was captivated by her intellect, her political insight, and her vision for Russia's future. He began to see her not only as a companion, but as a leader who might one day transform the empire. As their relationship became more public, Orlov's influence grew. Catherine entrusted him with personal and political matters, allowing him a role in decisions that extended beyond the duties of a typical officer. His brothers, equally ambitious, began to rally around Catherine as well, forming a family alliance that increased her support base. By the early 1760s, it was clear to all who observed court life that Grigory Orlov had risen far beyond his station. No longer just a promising guard officer, he had become the Grand Duchess's most trusted confidant and, in the eyes of many, her chosen champion. This rise set the stage for the bold political moves that would soon follow. By the summer of 1762, tensions within the Russian court had reached a breaking point. Peter III's unpopular policies and perceived favoritism toward Prussia alienated many nobles, officers, and clergy. Among those quietly plotting change, Grigory Orlov emerged as a central figure. His position as Catherine's closest ally, combined with his influence among the elite guards regiments, placed him in a unique position to act. The plan to depose Peter was bold and risky. Orlov coordinated with his brothers and a select group of loyal officers to secure key military units in St. Petersburg. He worked tirelessly behind the scenes, ensuring that regiments would be ready to declare their allegiance to Catherine at a moment's notice. Trust and secrecy were critical. Any sign of betrayal could have led to execution for all involved. On the day of the coup, Orlov's leadership was decisive. He personally escorted Catherine from the palace to the barracks, where she was proclaimed Empress by the troops. His presence beside her during these crucial hours reassured supporters and demonstrated unity between them. The swift and bloodless overthrow stunned observers at home and abroad. By nightfall, Peter had been forced to abdicate, and Catherine had secured the throne. Grigory Orlov's role in the coup not only changed the course of Russian history, but also cemented his status as one of the most influential figures in her reign's early years. In the months following Catherine's ascension, Grigory Orlov's influence at court reached unprecedented heights. Recognized as a key architect of the coup, he and his brothers were lavishly rewarded. Grigory received estates, wealth, and high-ranking titles, including General-in-Chief and Count of the Russian Empire. His position at Catherine's side made him not only a trusted advisor, but also a symbol of the new order she had established. Orlov's role extended beyond ceremonial honors. He became deeply involved in shaping court politics, overseeing military appointments, and influencing decisions on foreign and domestic matters. His authority was reinforced by his close personal relationship with the Empress, which both allies and rivals understood as a source of his power. Few dared challenge his position openly, knowing Catherine valued his loyalty. The consolidation of his influence also brought opportunities for his family. The Orlov brothers controlled vast resources and enjoyed privileged access to the throne, making them one of the most formidable political families in Russia. Grigory's name became synonymous with the stability of Catherine's rule during its formative years. Yet, this prominence also drew resentment from factions who saw his rise as an overreach. Whispered rivalries began to stir within the court, though for the moment, his standing remained secure. Grigory Orlov had transformed from a decorated officer into one of the empire's most powerful men, a transition that would shape the next phase of his life and political career. Beyond his military achievements and courtly influence, Grigory Orlov also played a notable role in advancing domestic reforms in Russia. Aware that Catherine sought to modernize the empire, Orlov supported initiatives aimed at improving agriculture, trade, and education. His vision for Russia included a more self-sufficient economy, and he encouraged the adoption of modern farming techniques to increase productivity across rural estates. One of his most enduring contributions was his involvement in the establishment of the Free Economic Society in 1765. This organization, supported by Catherine, was dedicated to promoting scientific and agricultural knowledge throughout the empire. Orlov acted as a key patron, using his wealth and political weight to attract experts, fund research, and distribute practical advice to landowners and farmers. Through public competitions, the society rewarded innovative methods that could improve Russia's economy. Orlov's interest in reform was not purely academic. He visited estates, spoke with local administrators, and sought feedback from those working the land, understanding that genuine progress required practical application, not just theory. His efforts reflected a desire to blend enlightened ideas with Russia's traditional structures, helping bridge the gap between the court's vision and the realities of rural life. Although his reformist activities did not command the same drama as his military or political feats, they added a valuable dimension to his legacy. Grigory Orlov was not merely a figure of power. He was also a proponent of change, using his influence to encourage progress in an empire still finding its place in the modern world. While Grigory Orlov's reputation was rooted in his role at court, he also undertook significant diplomatic and military responsibilities during Catherine's reign. His stature as one of the Empress's closest confidants made him a natural choice for sensitive missions that required both political acumen and personal authority. Orlov participated in negotiations with foreign envoys, particularly on matters concerning the Ottoman Empire and other regional powers, where maintaining a balance of strength was essential to Russia's strategic interests. In addition to his diplomatic work, Orlov maintained a direct hand in military affairs. He inspected garrisons, advised on fortification projects, and supported naval expansion to strengthen Russia's position in the Black Sea. His advocacy for a strong military stemmed from his belief that a modern, disciplined force was the foundation of both security and prestige for the empire. One notable assignment saw him acting as an intermediary during peace discussions, where his persuasive charm and stature within the Russian elite helped ease tensions. Though not all his missions yielded immediate results, they reinforced his image as a man who could serve both in the grandeur of the palace and on the front lines of statecraft. Through these engagements, Grigory Orlov demonstrated that his influence extended beyond domestic politics. He was a figure who could navigate the delicate intersection of diplomacy and military strategy. reinforcing Russia's presence on the international stage while safeguarding Catherine's vision for her empire. In 1771, Moscow was struck by a devastating outbreak of plague that caused panic, social unrest, and economic paralysis. As fear spread, the city's administration struggled to contain both the disease and the anger of its citizens. Grigory Orlov was dispatched by Catherine to take control of the situation, reflecting her trust in his ability to combine decisive leadership with personal courage. Upon his arrival, Orlov implemented strict public health measures. Quarantines were enforced, infected homes were sealed, and the dead were buried quickly to prevent further spread. He brought in medical experts and ensured that supplies of food and medicine reached the population, actions that reassured many residents. Recognizing that fear was fueling unrest, he addressed the people directly, urging calm and cooperation. The crisis reached a peak when a mob, enraged by rumors and religious tensions, rioted in the city. Orlov confronted the unrest head-on, using both negotiation and force to restore order. His visible presence in the streets, combined with tangible relief efforts, helped to stabilize Moscow. Within months, the outbreak subsided, and life began to return to normal. For his role in quelling the riot and managing the epidemic, Orlov earned widespread praise. His leadership during this crisis showcased not only his administrative skill, but also his willingness to face danger alongside the people he served. It became one of the defining episodes of his career, reinforcing his reputation as a man capable of action in the most perilous circumstances. By the mid-1770s, Grigory Orlov's once dominant position at Catherine's court began to weaken. Years of prominence had inevitably bred resentment among rivals, many of whom saw an opportunity to undermine his influence. New political figures emerged, eager to win the Empress's attention and shape policy in their favor, while Orlov's own health and energy started to decline. The most significant challenge came from the rise of other favorites, whose charm, ambition, and fresh perspectives began to overshadow him in Catherine's eyes. While Orlov remained respected for his past service, his role in decision-making diminished. Subtle shifts in court protocol, fewer invitations to private councils, reduced involvement in sensitive state affairs, signaled that his political era was waning. Compounding the situation were personal disagreements and accusations of mismanagement leveled by his detractors. These claims, whether exaggerated or not, weakened his standing further. Despite his long history with Catherine, the bond they once shared was no longer the unshakable alliance it had been during the coup and early years of her reign. Yet, even in this period of decline, Orlov retained a degree of prestige. His name still carried weight in Russian society, and he continued to be honored for his military and diplomatic contributions. However, the shifting dynamics of the court made it clear that a new generation of influence was taking hold, leaving Orlov to navigate a changing political landscape with reduced authority. In an effort to rekindle the bond he once shared with Catherine, Grigory Orlov made an extraordinary gesture in the late 1770s. He purchased one of the largest diamonds in the world, a stunning gem weighing nearly 200 carats, and presented it to the Empress. Known thereafter as the Orlov diamond, it was meant to serve as both a symbol of his enduring devotion and a reminder of the pivotal role he had played in her rise to power. While Catherine graciously accepted the gift, the gesture did not restore their former closeness. By this time, her affections and political trust had shifted toward newer favorites, leaving Orlov's influence largely ceremonial. The diamond, despite its magnificence, could not reverse the tide of change in the court's balance of power. The final break between Orlov and Catherine came quietly rather than through public scandal. Their interactions became less frequent, and his involvement in matters of state was minimal. Court observers noted that the once dynamic partnership had given way to polite distance, with Orlov spending more time away from the center of political life. Although the Orlov diamond would remain in Russia's imperial treasury as a lasting symbol of his grand gesture, it also marked the closing chapter of his relationship with Catherine. For Orlov, it was both a declaration of loyalty and a farewell to the position he had once commanded with unmatched authority. After his final withdrawal from Catherine's inner circle, Grigory Orlov sought a quieter, more personal chapter in his life. In the early 1780s, he married Ekaterina Zinovieva, a union that surprised some at court given his long reputation as a bachelor and a former imperial favorite. The marriage appeared to bring him a measure of domestic stability, though his health, already in decline, limited his public activities. Choosing to spend extended periods abroad, Orlov traveled through Europe, living for a time in Germany and France. These years were marked by attempts to restore his well-being as he sought the benefits of milder climates and renowned spas. While away, he largely avoided political involvement, focusing instead on family life and private affairs. Despite his distance, his name still carried a certain prestige among European nobility, a reminder of his once formidable role in Russian politics. Eventually, Orlov returned to Russia, where he divided his time between St. Petersburg and his estates. By this stage, his influence at court was minimal, and he seemed content to remain outside the shifting alliances and rivalries that defined Catherine's later reign. Friends and associates noted a more reflective, even melancholic side to him, shaped by years of both triumph and loss. Though no longer a central figure in the empire's political life, Orlov's presence remained a reminder of the dramatic events that had brought Catherine to the throne, and of the man who had once stood at her side during Russia's most decisive coup. In his final years, Grigory Orlov's health deteriorated rapidly. He suffered from what contemporaries described as bouts of deep melancholy and mental decline, conditions that some believed were worsened by the lingering effects of past political disappointments, personal betrayals, and the gradual loss of influence at court. The once charismatic statesman, celebrated for his confidence and decisiveness, now seemed withdrawn, spending long hours in silence. Friends and family attempted to provide comfort, but his vibrant personality had grown subdued, and his public appearances became rare. By the mid-1780s, Orlov's illness had grown severe. He spent most of his time at his estate near Moscow, attended by a small circle of loyal companions and physicians. Despite their estrangement, Catherine the Great is said to have expressed genuine concern for his condition, privately acknowledging the pivotal role he had played in securing her throne during the coup of 1762. There were even reports that she sent trusted envoys to check on his welfare, though their meetings were brief. On the 24th of April in the year 1783, Grigory Orlov died at the age of 45, ending a life that had moved from the heights of imperial power to the quiet isolation of political exile. His funeral was conducted with full honors, attended by nobles, former allies, and military officers who had once served under his command. Orlov's legacy remains complex. Admirers praised his bravery, loyalty, and leadership, especially during moments of national crisis. Critics pointed to his later withdrawal from public life as a retreat from responsibility. Yet the enduring presence of the Orlov diamond in the Russian crown jewels stands as a glittering reminder of his wealth, ambition, and lasting influence. In history's pages, he remains a figure defined by bold action, grand gestures, and a fate forever entwined with the rise and reign of Catherine the Great. What do you think about Catherine the First of Russia? Was she a remarkable empress who rose from humble beginnings to the highest throne in the empire, steering Russia through transition with resilience, warmth, and political instinct? Or was she a figure overshadowed by the grandeur of Peter the Great, remembered more as a companion than as a sovereign in her own right? And what about Grigory Orlov? Was he a bold and loyal leader whose decisive courage secured Catherine the Great's rise, shaping the course of Russian history in a single daring act? Or was he a man whose brilliance faded too soon, consumed by rivalries, exile, and the quiet decline of influence? Were they architects of power, bound together by loyalty and ambition, or symbols of how even the mightiest can be touched by loss, change, and time's unyielding hand? Did their legacies strengthen the empire, or did history soften their voices behind the grandeur of the crown? Let us know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful tales from the past, stories of courage, choice, and the quiet force behind history. Thank you so much for watching.